County Crime Stoppers is now offering $10,000 for information that leads to an arrest.
It's for a shooting that killed 19-year-old Keyshawn Ehlers in July. Someone shot him in the 100 block of Curtis Street Southwest. That's in the Summit View Village near Wilson Avenue and Wiley Boulevard. Anyone with information should contact Cedar Rapids Police or Crime Stoppers. You can stay anonymous. Now, that's one of at least 6 unsolved fatal shootings in Cedar Rapids this year.
Can you tell us about who you lost and what they meant to you?
Oh my God. Yes. Okay, give me 1 second.
You're good.
It's hard.
It is hard.
Keyshawn was more than just one of my best friends. He was someone that I just really looked up to. He was smart, he was caring, he was funny, he was the life of the party. He was that one friend that I just knew was going somewhere.
Somebody who I lost, her name was Marissa Doolin. She was really special to me because, like, growing up, that was my little crush, like in kindergarten and stuff like that. And she was just a really kind-hearted person. She was really sweet, and she really didn't mean no harm to nobody. She just got into it with the wrong guy, and she fell in love with him, and he just ended up taking her life. It was just like somebody like took a vacuum and just like sucked your heart out.
So Andrew, he played basketball for Metro, and this was their home gym, and I feel like for him this was kind of like a getaway.
His mother held a celebration of life here, had a little get together for all his close friends and family. This is when my boy played his last basketball game, shot his last 3.
He scored 27 points that day.
Yeah, scored 27 points. He was killing it. Like, he really loved it.
Royal's goals, like, he had endless goals, endless dreams. He wanted to have a clothing store at one point, making music. Like, it's just all endless, really. He never wanted to stop, you know? That's kind of where I got my drive from, really. He would even go to the extent to text me what the weather was for that day. Like, hey, bro, it's cold, bundle up. Like he's the different type of breed, for real. So, yeah, he was just the realest one, you know? Yeah, that one hurt the whole city, really.
Gun violence certainly affects everyone in Cedar Rapids. Whether you live in proximity to where the incident occurs or not, this is our community. We all belong here. We all want a safe environment for everyone. You know, when people are making a decision about whether to relocate to our town for a job or for a new opportunity, you know, that's one of the things they look at. So the literal future of this community is not only tethered to the young people here being able to grow up in a safe environment and have a chance, but also has to do with you know, sort of this outside investment.
Why do I think a majority of our shootings involve young black men? I honestly could not tell you that. You know, it goes back to systematic racism. It goes back into lack of opportunity. It goes back into how they may have been raised as young boys, how the system has treated them, how, you know, how have they been given the tools that they need to be successful.
When you have a lot of people who are under pressure or oppression, you then see results of that happening in communities. So when you have a community of people who are experiencing conflict and they don't have the resources or the tools to be able to handle that conflict, then, you know, people do what they do.
He was a happy person. Like, he was sad, but you couldn't tell. Like, you wouldn't know he was sad. Like, he loved everybody. Like, he'd go to the club, drinks on me, bros, come on. Like, he did everything for everybody. He was just that type of person. Like, this is where my brother was, like, taken from us. And it's, like, hard because, like, oh, that's where he would sleep. When I'm here sleeping, I hear stuff. And it's like, I feel like somebody's coming for me as if they did for him. And so it's hard to be here, but it's like where he spent all his moments. So it's like happy, it's a happy place, but it's a sad place at the same time.
It is sometimes hard to separate kind of those personal thoughts from the professional, motion of this is what I do, this is what I do next. Yes, you do go through that because you're a professional and you have to, you have to first take care of the patient, you have to first save your life. But even going through that, you can't escape the emotional impact that it has on you, particularly as a person of color. So I think there are multiple emotions that goes through my mind, and not among them, like you said, is kind of how did we get to this point? Why is this 19-year-old black boy laying here? How did he get shot? What are the circumstances that led to this?
During my time at Jefferson, I've gotten to know and really care about some young people that have ended up losing their life. It's personal because I personally know these kids. When you see them every day at school, it's just different than interacting with people in the community. It's different because I'm with them for, 8 a.m. to 3:30 or whatever. So it's been hard to process sometimes why somebody's life was taken that I care about.
They feel like if they were to bring in the police, nothing would happen because they don't care about us. That's what we feel, that they don't care about people who look like me or people who look like him or him. And they feel like they have to take matters into their own hands to justify the situation, to make sure oh, you're not doing it, okay, then I'm gonna settle the score.
One of the highest areas of frustration that I experience and also the officers experience is the lack of cooperation from victims who have suffered and survived incidents of gun violence. They know who has injured them, but for whatever reason they maintain they do not want to cooperate with the police and provide us with that information.
Until people your age decide that they are part of the solution and want to play an active role in helping us develop these solutions, things are going to continue the same way they are.
Andrew was my best friend, one of my best friends. I was hanging out with him every day. It was crazy. It was the day we lost him, that was the one day we ain't hang out. That's crazy. The one day, and then I get a call at 3 a.m. talking about my friend got shot. It felt like it was fake because Andrew would never put himself in a situation like that. Especially not without his two best friends with him, me and Keyshawn. That's just crazy to think. He was just with all the wrong people, on all the wrong places. It's crazy. Everything had to be perfectly wrong for that situation to happen.
You get a lot of anger, you know what I mean? Because you wonder why is it so easy for them to get a hold of a gun, or you know what I mean? Or you think, why is this object that was supposed to supposedly protect him is now the reason that he's gone, you know what I mean? So I feel like it causes a lot of anger in you, and sometimes even when you're sad, you just get angry and you just want to scream and yell and just literally ask why.
We want to have the conversation of what the streets provide that maybe home or school doesn't provide. I mean, it's a safety net. You got people on the street that got your back, right? If you are having issues with somebody, you know that you got people that'll help support you and get you through the situation. I think a lot of times, the young people are looking for support and looking for love, and so if you don't necessarily receive love in the home, you're going to go search for it elsewhere. And so if you don't know what healthy love is, you are more susceptible to take what people give you.
There is not a lot of money in prevention. There's a lot of money in rehab. I don't know a lot about the rehab of gun violence, but I can tell you if you can give kids a different sense of direction, value, and show them value of who they are before they get to the guns or to the streets, we're more likely to keep those kids off the streets.
I would never think that being incarcerated is an effective way to actually deal with any individual.
You can't just simply punish someone and say, do better. We're teaching as a society. We're showing as a society what we value, what we believe in, and what we see as potential in that human being.
Why do I feel as if the person who's actually done a crime is also a victim? Because in that person's thought process, they feel as if that's the only alternative that they have. And that within itself does not allow them the opportunities that are put right there in front of them.
You got to get them when they're young, you know, and I think more of our programs need to go down to elementary level to kind of just really start teaching what we teach at LBA, which is purpose. Why are you here? Why should you be here? Why do you have value? And start to teach those things so people can start to see their dreams. So we need to make sure that you know that you have the ability to dream, and you should dream to be whatever you want to be, and then go for it.
I think we have the ability to make sure that young people have programming so they have an outlet. I think we have the ability to help do more conflict resolution. I think that is part of the solution. But it shouldn't surprise us that gun violence or violence period continues to escalate when I think in a way it's kind of a cry for help and that nothing has worked. And so we need to involve young people in that solution, and I think we haven't done enough of that.
There are organizations here in town led by individuals who know these people, who know shooters, who know their neighborhoods, who understand how to communicate. They just need funding and resources to sustain their programs. They're not great big nonprofits who rake in millions of dollars, but they have the most impact.
I think we are not latching on to our influencers in our community. I know as an educator, I have a certain role. I can be the coolest principal that you're ever going to meet, and I aspire to be that way in many ways. But I also know that there are still cooler people in the community that have our students' ears. And so we have to leverage those people so that they're saying the same message there as we're saying here.
Once upon a time when we were growing up, it wasn't uncommon for people to have an argument, and you'd be on the school grounds or you would be in the park and there'd be an argument. There may be a tussle and a fist fight, but for the most part, right after that was over, you know, the ego was gone, and you know, you kind of either made up or you went your separate ways and everything was done.
We are more quick to offend and provoke one another. Simultaneously, we have struggled to process through being provoked, and is leading to people being more upset than ever before and not knowing how to actually resolve the conflict. And because one person escalates, we all feel like we need to escalate, and that leads to more people carrying, more people feeling like they have to do something, and it potentially leading to violence.
Your question is very long and complex and thoughtful, right? So I do think that there's a deficit in all of those areas that you just described in terms of, you know, consequential thinking, in terms of impulse control. I do think that there is a deficit in that area. And I think, so therefore, that is why I think that our dollars with regards to focusing on gun violence, the vast majority of our dollars needs to go in the prevention realm. I mean, if you compare it to cancer, that's what we teach, you know, people about cancer. Prevent, screen, that kind of stuff. I think it's similar with gun violence.
Having somebody to look up to for us is very important, because like growing up, I've seen a lot of people who wouldn't have that father figure or that mother figure, and they would go down the wrong path because they feel like they didn't have nobody. And I know how that is, like growing up, not, like having somebody that's there but that's not there at the same time. So you would be looking for attention or looking for that spot to be filled. So you do different things like getting into gun violence, getting into drugs, doing things that you normally wouldn't do, like if that person was there. So.
You know, one of the things I think kids can benefit from is, first of all, having honest conversations about what is going on. having honest conversations with adults to say, look, this is what I'm dealing with, this is what I'm struggling with, this is what frustrates me, this is what is about to go down. I think having someone that they trust that is not going to be judgmental, who's going to listen and who's going to guide and who's going to give advice, I think that's part of the solution.
Everything you do is a business, like, you know what I'm saying? You can literally structure yourself legitly, like if you wanted to, or you don't gotta be hiding from the police all the time or worried about something coming to take your money, or worried about trying to find a come up all the time, because you know you have your structure, your foundation. We need to start teaching kids how to start businesses. If you can sell drugs, you can sell t-shirts. If you can sell t-shirts, you can sell water bottles. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like anything, we just gotta have a structure.
He was literally the last thought that I could have thought of. So I was just walking downstairs and I saw my mom crying and my dad just shaking his head. And they told me that Roy got shot. Ethel, my aunt, she had called my mom and they couldn't find out what hospital he was gonna be at. And when they got another call back from the hospital and they told him that he was dead, I've never heard my mom or Ethel or any woman cry like that before, really, in front of my face. So it didn't hit me till later that day, probably like 8 p.m. So it just don't feel real, you know, when it's your homie, when it's your family like that. I recently just made a song a couple weeks ago, but it's really just talking about the struggle, you know, and losing my cousin, just living life, you know. Talk about some of the homies, talk about my mom. But it's just all raw and uncut. You know what's going on. I was talking to my dog today, said how you doing? Said for a devil falling and my tongue keep moving. He said off them drugs to forget who we losing. RIP my soul, you memory cause all the confusion. I lost Roy 2 years ago, that's a different type of pain. Mama crying, man, she won't ever be the same. I know you watching over me still to this day. You my dog for life and I learn from your ways. It's a party up in heaven, it's a blessing.
Mother's Day was coming around and he wanted to buy his mom something special. So I remember we went to Bath & Beyond and we literally spent like 2 hours smelling every single candle on that shelf. And that's just crazy because like I feel like that's not something that you would ever think that he would do, you know what I mean? Or like, you know, or sometimes we'd just be at my house and we'd be laying there and he'd put on trivia shows on the TV and he'd literally know the answer to every single question.
So one memory that I'll never forget with Keyshawn, we were in Chicago at Summer Smash, a music festival. I just remember him kind of going MIA for a second, and he had a broken arm at the time, so we were all in the VIP area. And he kind of went away and he came running up to me and my friend Ashlyn and he was like, guys, I'm gonna get us backstage, like you have to come with me. And so he had us following around like these security guards for probably an hour trying to get us backstage. And we ended up not going backstage, but it was just a really funny thing. And I love how he came back to find me and Ashlyn just to get backstage, and we never did.
My favorite memory of us was when we used to play Nerf guns in the basement. I could never forget that. We would team up, with teams and just start playing Nerf guns and stuff like that, running around the basement. It was a pretty big basement, circled one, so we would just hide and stuff like that. That was really fun playing with him.
It was one time in kindergarten and she had pulled me aside and she was like, hey, come with me. And we went to this classroom. She was like showing me like the little classroom pet and stuff. And she was like, hey, do you want to hang out after school? Because she seen I wasn't hanging out or playing with nobody. And so she just like, hey, you can come kick it with me. And I was like, okay. And you know, I had a little crush on her, so I'm like just blushing and stuff. And so then I was like, can we go outside? And she was like, yeah. And then we started digging for worms, because you know how little kids is, and like they like to play in the dirt and stuff. We started digging for worms, pretending we firefighters and stuff like that.
I grew up in Chicago. I lived in New York for 4 years. I lived in Ohio. I've been all over this country. And I think that this community has a lot of strengths. And I think what we have to do is, again, look at violence as a community-wide issue, a community-wide issue that can be solved, but it has to be solved together. I think that I would like to see these numbers come down. I think that's gonna happen once we actually have true engagement, once we actually listen to our young people, once we actually give people the tools to deal with conflict. And I think that this community can continue to thrive. I think it'll continue to thrive economically. I think we won't have brain drain and people wanting to leave. I think it'll be a place where people will be happy and the playing field will be a little bit more level than what it is now. That's my hope anyway.
Right now we're dealing with folks who don't believe that they're going to become 20 years old or 21 years old or 25 years old. The notion of becoming 30 years old is a fantasy to too many people in East Central Iowa. This is not Chicago. This is not Minneapolis. This is not New York or Los Angeles. This is East Central Iowa. There's no reason why we shouldn't all be able to grow old unless some kind of disease comes and catches us or we end up having a traffic collision.
There's really nothing you have to be protected from. We're in Iowa. Like, I mean, we all grew up together. We all went to the same school together. Like, you really shouldn't have to be feel like you need protected if you're not doing something to cause you to feel that way.
One of the questions that I always ask young people when I'm doing a disciplinary review is, do you have any idea how important you are? I don't think young people have a true idea of how important they are.
I think sometimes, what seems like bravery, which is pulling that trigger, I think that's sometimes, a lot of times that's a cowardly thing to do. That's what everybody expects you to do and that's what everybody else is doing. But the decision not to follow, the decision to be a leader, the decision to do something different, I think sometimes that's the brave thing and not what will implicitly seem like it's a brave thing.
Last summer, I had a student taken from this world. He was killed. And his big brother still lives in our city. They left our city and they went somewhere else. The little brother, the one who was killed, looked up to his big brother and he adopted a lot of his mindset. And his big brother and I had a lot of conversations. He was always quick to anger. And I always asked him, why did he respond the way he responded? And he said it was about respect. And I asked him to go deeper. What did respect mean to him? And so he said that it was respect for himself. He was never going to be seen as soft or weak or back down. And I wonder, because I haven't had a chance to talk to him, if that mindset of not backing down played a role in his little brother getting harmed. As I think about the next generation, I want them to treat themselves with a different definition of respect. Respect in, I want to be able to be here every single day. I can lose this battle because I'll win the war, which is my life. I won't get so consumed by this single argument that I allow it to change the trajectory for the rest of my life. We make mistakes and it can take us 30 seconds and it can affect the next 30 years.
I used to do youth programming years ago, and I was working specifically with African American young men from the ages of 12 to 14. This is when I was doing human service work at Harambee House. And we used to have these young men, when they would come into our agency, we would have them stand and make a circle, and there was a certain pledge that they would say to themselves. And the reason why we did that is because we wanted to embed in their minds an idea on how to live their lives. And the pledge was, strive for discipline, dedication, and achievement in all that you do. Dare struggle and sacrifice, but gain the strength that comes from this. Build to where we are, and dare leave a legacy that lasts as long as the sun shines and the water flows. But above all, may our ancestors always walk with you. We need a foundation. Young people need a foundation in order to have some sort of direction. So if it's a pledge, if it's a grandmother, if it's an uncle, if it's an older gentleman or young lady in the community, that you know they are only going to tell you things that are going to allow you to be successful, then run to that person, okay? Because we can't do it alone. You at your age, me at my age, we can't do it alone. We need that togetherness in order for us to be successful in life. a person much wiser than myself told me that it will take as long as it took for us to get in a situation to get out of a situation. So we have not even started looking at what we need to do to correct some of the problems that we have created ourselves.